Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today as the Colorado Springs community responds to the Dallas tragedy. With us today, we do have a member with the FBI, Kelly Downs, Special Agent in Charge. We have Commissioner Peggy Littleton. We have State Representative Kit Ruppe. And we also have many community leaders and members here today. And we would also like to thank our media partners for making time in your day to be here. We will have several speakers to include the Colorado Springs Police Department Chief Pete Carey, El Paso County Sheriff Bill Elder, Fountain PD Chief Chris Heberer, Henry Allen, who is the president of the Pikes Peak Southern Christian Leadership Conference, our District Attorney Dan May, and our Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers. Each will be making a brief statement, and then we will open it up for a short Q&A afterwards. If you could wait, raise your hand, wait till a mic gets to you. We are live streaming this, and we would like our community to hear the questions that are being asked in addition to the responses. So without further ado, Colorado Springs Police Chief Pete Carey.
Thanks, Jackie. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see so many people here and people that I recognize, community leaders. I appreciate very much your time. I have some very, very brief comments, and obviously I'll be here for some questions. I think what's on everybody's mind is how the events in Dallas, Texas, impacted Colorado Springs and our community. And I guess in one short phrase, I'd say profoundly. There's a lot of questions going on in our community, in the Colorado Springs Police Department, and we're all profoundly impacted by that. It's ironic that yesterday I graduated a class of 43 brand new police recruits, eager to serve their community, and we had a great ceremony. Both the mayor and I commented to those young recruits how important it was to conduct themselves as professionals and how tough this job was. And not 6 or 7 hours later, I'm sure with their family members, they're watching what we all watched on television last night. So very, very difficult and very profound. I authorized morning bands like Chris Heberer and Bill Elder did for their departments this morning, and a lot of good comments from our officers, and they're really having a difficult time trying to figure out what happened, why it happened, and how we're prepared in this community. I can tell you that when you talk about preparation for something as large scale as what happened in Dallas, Texas, it's not done overnight. It's about community relations, and I think it's very healthy and strong to see so many of our community leaders here today concerned about this. You don't prepare overnight for that. These are things that the sheriff and Chief Heberer and I have been working on for a couple years now in community forums, discussions in churches and other public venues on how we deal with something like this and what's going on. I have to say that what's most important to me in my police department is being reflective of the community that I serve. If I don't have a police department that is actually demographically and otherwise reflective of the community, it's going to be difficult for my police officers to respond to and take care of the needs of the community. Equality of enforcement is very, very important to me too. What we do in the north part of town should be very, very similar to what we do in the south and the east part of town, so we're working very, very hard on that. I also want to say that within a few weeks, the Colorado Springs Police Department is going to step up with body-worn cameras for our police officers. By October, everybody in uniform will have a camera, and I think that adds to transparency and accountability. And there's a lot of community leaders in this room that helped me prepare that program over the last year and a half. So I'm very, very much looking forward to that, and I think that'll help things in Colorado Springs. I'm very, very proud of the relationship between law enforcement in this region and our community. I think we are transparent, and I think we are accountable. We're certainly not perfect, and as we strive to reflect our communities, we have much work to do. Again, I commissioned, along with the mayor, a use of force study a couple of months ago, and I've learned a lot about that and what we can do better as far as our policies and our training of our supervisors. So we've got a long ways to go, and I think we're getting there. My heart goes out to the Dallas community, to the Dallas Police Department, and they're in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. You know, these are difficult times. And, you know, I watched the unfolding events last night, and I watched the tragic deaths being reported of 5 Dallas police officers and the wounding of 7 others, and I'm shocked. I'm shocked that in this day and age that the public sees, even just some members of our public, sees law enforcement as the enemy. And like the chief said, we work hard in this community to bridge our relationships with every member of this community. And we've worked hard for the last year and a half with Henry Allen, with the NAACP, and now the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. We've worked hard with members of this community that help instruct cultural diversity training. We've worked hard to make this community safe. And, the chief of the Dallas Police Department said it the best. Most times, law enforcement don't feel support by the public we serve. Let's not make this most times. Let's not let this divide our community. Let that not be the message that we send our community. We need to come together now more than ever, and we need to find ways to bridge that gap. Yeah, the members of law enforcement grieve as a family, and we are grieving for the Dallas Police Department, for the DART officer that was killed. And, I just want people to know that we need to continue to pray for our law enforcement officers here in Dallas and across this country daily. And I just ask that they be safe, that they be vigilant, and Godspeed.
Good afternoon. As always, it's my great honor to be here to address members of our community, all my good friends that we talk on a frequent basis. I want to take a minute to appreciate the media here that's helping us today to tell our story. I want to thank Henry, who we spoke about yesterday about putting together a conference. And then we all woke up this morning, or if you're like me and you caught it laying about in bed about 10 o'clock last night, I don't think if you caught it that way you slept very much. I know I didn't. I know we have 1,500 sworn sheriff deputies and police officers in our region. And they all woke up today to a changed fabric of the world. Losing 5 officers and a DART officer in Dallas, Texas is tragic and heartbreaking. There were some wet eyes today in my department as I talked to my young officers. And more importantly, their families. Just as Pete said, they had 43 graduate yesterday. And now you have 43 spouses, family members, and other people aren't quite sure what kind of job or profession they have chosen, because it is a profession. I'm proud of everything that we have done as a team. Everything we're talking about today has been started in years of hard work by many people that have contributed, many people that have come before us, and many people that once we retire will carry the tradition in El Paso County and throughout Colorado. We believe in diversity. We believe in being a team of team. We believe in relationships very much. We all invest in relationships that are critical for our community. And in crisis, you can't wait to develop those relationships. That's been spoke about. You have to work on them hard, and they are hard, because sometimes we do have misunderstandings. Sometimes community members don't always get it right. Sometimes police officers don't always get it right. But the most important thing that we can do is stay committed to the relationship, building trust. If we can learn as a community to trust each other, then we're going to be okay. Today we started our 3rd day of active shooter training down in the city of Fountain, where we employed over 350 police officers, sheriff's deputies, EMTs, Fountain firefighters, school district 8 employees, and we brought in about 100 young soldiers from Fort Carson. They came over to Fountain and helped to practice how to secure their schools. We learned a lot of lessons of the training. And in the light of Dallas, we're going to continue to share those lessons. We're going to continue to train those lessons. The bad guys in our community, I know evil exists in the world. I've seen it 3 times when I've deployed overseas. I know it exists in our world. I know it exists here in our country. It touched El Paso County twice last year. It will touch us again. We all need to realize that and work together and build those relationships and train hard. The people that wish to do us evil, whether it's police officers or civilians, or God bless our schools and our children, okay, they want us to protect us. They don't understand boundaries, and neither do we. With our collaboration with our regional partners and our citizens and our groups, we are very strong, and we will be ready. We will be ready to protect our community and protect each other. God bless the people of Dallas, the police department, their DART team. God bless our country and the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. On my left chest, I wear the flag of the United States of America. I wear that flag because for 24 years I protected this nation and its citizens. And I wear that because of the falling men in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Falcon Heights, Minnesota. Below that is the shrouded badge. Because I was a law enforcement officer in this county for 14 years, I wear that for the fallen officers in Dallas, Texas. In my right chest, I wear the flag of this great city, a city where I am very proud to be a citizen. And I work hard to make this a city where all of our communities, citizens, feel safe. My name is Henry Allen Jr. I am the current president of the Pikes Peak Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The men you see behind me are stellar leaders. On Monday when I saw the news flash, or Tuesday when I saw the news flash of yet another involved shooting, I got up the next morning and twittered and texted the chief of police of Colorado Springs, the district attorney of El Paso County, the sheriff of El Paso County, and the city chief of Fountain. And like clockwork, they responded with their concerns. And then on last evening, when we experienced the horrendous killing of law enforcement officers in Denver, correction in Dallas, I again contacted those folks to my rear, and we prayed and developed a strategy to ensure that we talk about the safety of this beautiful city that we live in. As a father and grandfather and great-grandfather, I'm deeply saddened by the most recent tragic killing that has occurred in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Falcon Heights, Minnesota, and Dallas, Texas. The mass shooting in Dallas that left 5 officers dead and 6 others wounded is the deadliest attack on law enforcement since 9/11, according to the stats from the National Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, a large majority of the law enforcement officers are outstanding public servants, as shown in Dallas, Texas. They put their lives on the line every day and are prepared to lose them. I can strike that note because I've been a part of that. But I also am concerned that there are some officers that are acting out of irrational fears of African Americans, especially African American men. Whether it's a fear or a lack of common courtesy and respect for human beings, either way, this type of action cannot continue to occur. As the local representative of the Civil Rights Organization, I've asked state, county, and city elected officials, along with local law enforcement agency, District Attorney Dan May, Sheriff Bill Elder, Chief Pete Carey, Chief Chris Herbert, and FBI Special Agent in charge, Special Agent Thomas Ravenel. I've asked faith-based leaders, community leaders, to follow the example of the founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and that is of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He who taught us nonviolence and dedicated his life to uniting all people of all colors. In following Dr. King's teaching, we as a community must work to focus on our community under one common goal, to ensure the safety and security of all our citizens. All of us should be a part of that working mechanism. Together we can create and implement an effective policy working with our law enforcement that addresses what preventive strategies are in place, as well as what the initial response would be if such a tragedy would happen in our community. These are some things that we can do better, and I have discussed with the leaders. Cultural diversity training, continue with open forums and open meetings, us teaching and learning our community about our use of force policies, and working harder to do a better job of recruitment. I believe, as it shows by these gentlemen that stand behind me and about the leaders in the community that sits in your seats, I believe we are committed to show respect to each other as we stand together as elected officials, law enforcement leaders, spiritual and civil rights leaders. We are committed to the safety and security of all of our citizens and law enforcement. We, as an organization, the Pikes Peak Southern Christian Leadership Conference, will continue to work with everyone in our community to make our community a model that those that look forward to the Pikes Peak region will continue to see that beacon shining star, as our mayor said in his inaugural speech. We live and work and educate our children in one of the most beautiful cities in the nation. It will take each of us to ensure we maintain that visual for our children. Thank you.
We are not a society that is built on I am for black or I'm against black. We are not a society that was built on I'm for blue or I'm against blue. We're not one that is for or against white, for or against brown. We're not a society that was founded on for or against Christian, for or against Muslim, for or against Jew. This was a society, our society was an experiment for the world. Our society was one of the greatest, and is one of the greatest, best hopes for the world, and was founded on that. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson, I believe, who first coined the phrase melting pot. That's what we are. We're not black, we're not white, we're not blue, we're not Muslim, we're not Christian. We are Americans. And we are one of the best hopes for this world. We are Americans who stand together, both in times of crisis and in good times. We are seeing crisis across our country because we're forgetting our foundations. Our foundation was religious freedom. Our foundation was freedom for all, life for all. And we need to be together, one nation, Americans, that sees justice and injustice, no matter what the color is. Justice and injustice, no matter what the religion is. As the district attorney, I oversee and minister justice in this community. When we go out to scenes, I was there last October. I was there last Thanksgiving. We don't go out there and see colors or races or sexes or anything else. We see justice and injustice, and that's what our society needs to get back to. We need to hold those who are unjust accountable. We need to pray and help those that have been perpetrated on across this country, no matter where it was. Whether it was Baton Rouge, whether it was Dallas, whether it was Minnesota, whether it is Colorado Springs. Our community also, like Dallas, has gone through a lot of tragedy in the last few months. So we know what it is that they're going through right now. There is shock that's going through that community. There is pain that is going through that community. There is sorrow, there is grief. There's mixed emotions where some just don't even know what to feel at this point. We as a community can reach out also to them and say, we understand what you're going through. We as a nation and community need to come behind all those who are victims of senseless violence. Our prayers go out to all of those who have been victims of senseless violence, no matter who the perpetrator is. I think our community here has stood together well throughout the catastrophes we've seen in our city and our community. We pray that the same can happen throughout this country and throughout this nation, wherever it crops up. We hope that we will stay united going forward here, but we hope that we will stay united as a country, that as Americans, we stand together for justice against all injustice. Thank you.
I think the question I'm asked the most when it comes to events of the tragic nature that we've seen in the past week is, could it happen here? And the answer is pretty quick and pretty simple. Could we have controversial use of force by the police? Absolutely. We've had it in various scales. Could we have it in the scale of other communities? Yes, this is a large city. We're the 40th largest city in America. These events that we're seeing could happen in any major city in America. Could we see an inappropriate response by the community to a use of force by police? Yes, we could. So the question then becomes, what do you do as a community to prepare and create as good an environment as you can to deal with incidents of this nature? And I've listened to other mayors talk about the incidents in their community. I've obviously been through a couple incidents in the last 13 months here in our community. And here's a couple of thoughts I have. Number one, from the law enforcement perspective, you set very high standards for your law enforcement departments, and you recruit people to those standards. And to the extent possible, you recruit people to those departments and to those standards that reflect the diversity of the community. And Chief Carey will tell you that when he meets with me, and he's a direct report of mine, one of the things we talk about in our academies, are we attracting diversity into our academies, and if we're not, what do we need to do better to find people that meet the standards that we want in our police department and reflect the diversity of the community. Number two, we make sure that our law enforcement departments are at the cutting edge in terms of training, particularly in the area of use of force, that we're technologically as sophisticated as we can be, and that from a training perspective, we're as good as we can be. And there are accreditation programs that we can participate and be a part of that make sure that we know what standards are expected and we meet those standards in terms of our training. Number three, we have to hold our officers accountable to the standards of that training and to our expectations of them. And to the extent that they engage in inappropriate use of force, they're held accountable for it. We get rid of people who have a propensity towards inappropriate use of force. 4, when an incident occurs, we have processes in place that ensure a fair and unbiased investigation of the incident that took place, with the hopes of mitigating a rush to judgment. One of the problems that we've seen over the last year, when an incident occurs, we've seen violence in response, and then as things flush out in the criminal justice system, we have acquittals by primarily minority juries, where it's pretty clear that things did not occur in the perspective of those who acted in violence after those incidents. The fact of the matter is the police can act inappropriately. Oftentimes, the vast majority of the times, they're acting in accordance with their standards and their training. But the fact of the matter is, we got to be able to impartially and fairly investigate these instances and come to appropriate conclusions and hold people accountable that have acted inappropriately. And that's what I think all these folks are trying to accomplish in our community, to make sure that we create that sort of environment. I know that we work very hard. Is there such a thing as a culture in a law enforcement agency? You bet there is. I've had a lot of experience around the country seeing that sort of thing. And we want the culture of our law enforcement agencies to be one that's very community-minded. The officers act in defense of the community and, of course, in defense of themselves, but they do so in accordance with appropriate training and an appropriate law enforcement ethic. And so I feel like we need to continue to work hard on those various things that need to be done to create the most ideal atmosphere in a community to prevent incidents of this nature, and if they occur, to deal with them appropriately. So with that, I'll turn it back to the moderator and see if we have any questions.
Well, thank you to everybody who spoke. That does end the formal portion of our press conference. We would like to open it up now for questions and answers. Again, if you do have a question, please raise your hand, and if you could also direct it by name to the individual up on the panel that you would like to answer, that would also be helpful.
Test. There you go.
Thanks. Mr. Allen, thank you for being here. Can you can you help white people understand when riots happen or retaliation happens? Many people just don't get it. They don't understand what hundreds of years of oppression can do and how that can build up. And not that retaliation is justified, but maybe it's understandable in a way. So if you could use this opportunity to give us white people some understanding into the big picture of what's going on. Thank you, sir. You know, real quick, I in my office every day, in this volunteer position, where's my assistant? Where is she at? Kimberly, where are you at? Stand up real quick. Stand up. That's my executive assistant. She comes back to the office, and I'm always got Dr. Martin Luther King on YouTube. And I listen to Dr. King on a daily basis because it re-energized me and tell me what greatness that he had and he saw in his vision from the mountaintop, what he saw for this nation. And what I would tell all of us is that we cannot live in fear of each other. We must come out of our comfort zone in our communities and go to those communities that are suffering and be able to talk. You cannot be the most powerful country in the world when you live behind your own internal fears. As the district attorney said, this is the melting pot. Folks, from my granddaddy used to say, flat foot, nobody going nowhere. We all going to be here. But we have to be openness, black, white, Hispanic. We all have to be able to sit down and have a dialogue. It can no longer be about just I. It cannot be about I. It's got to be about all of us in order for our children to have a nation that was left to us. We can't. So if we are going to prepare ourselves to leave our children and grandchildren a legacy, the way we do that is get rid of the fear in our heart. Trust in your biblical ways, trust in your spiritual belief, and let God manage the rest. Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
I'm assuming you're talking about the Colorado Springs Police Department's use of force. I believe on our website there's a link to that. It was publicized about a month ago, and we did a couple of presentations to City Council, and one of them was public format, so there is a link to it. It came out with some interesting numbers and recommendations. I remember there was about 11 of those. For the most part, I think it showed we have a pretty sound policy in place. It also showed that in less than 2% of the time that we're interacting with the public, and mind you, that's about 300,000 calls for service a year, we don't use any force at all the majority of the time. But there are some things that I believe that we can learn and get better from. Consolidating policies, giving better supervisory training to those things. There was kind of a no-brainer a recommendation that if an officer's already had a problem with somebody, that officer should probably be separated from that person. It makes a lot of sense. In a lot of cases, we don't have another officer in the wings to do that, but it makes a lot of sense, and we need to solidify that and actually formalize that in policy, things like that. But it is on our website as a link.
My name is Sonia Rose, and I'm running for House District 18. I have a question as it relates to law enforcement. I think sometimes resentment not only comes from the street, but it's also from the court process. And so people that are not represented in court, I think that needs to be something that's addressed, and I think that will work a long way toward reconciliation of those who have not been received or represented well in the past. If anybody would like to speak to that, I'd like to hear that.
I'm not sure how to approach that. I can tell you that I think there's a lot, I guess I will address it. I think there's been a lot of misinformation, and I'm talking to you directly because you brought it up, about justice in our courthouses across this country. There's justice being done in our courthouses across this country each and every day. We have overrepresentation of minorities in every courthouse in this country each and every day. And that's a serious issue for our society. It's an extremely complex issue that people want to simplify and make it sound like it's one thing when it's not. It's a societal issue, quite frankly. It's not a courthouse issue. Studies for the last 10 or 20 years have shown that as victims have identified who their perpetrator is almost identical to who is being arrested, is almost identical percentage-wise to who is being convicted, is almost identical percentage-wise to who is in prison. So is it the criminal justice system? Is that where injustice is occurring? It is not. We have some deep-rooted societal issues that if you want to just point at the courthouse and say that's the solution, it isn't. The issue is more in our society itself. We have some serious societal issues, serious economic issues, serious poverty issues, serious issues that we need to address that will later reflect back into the courthouse in terms of what's happening in our society. We need to take on those issues. We need to be willing to step forward and do that. Quite frankly, as I've seen the studies of overrepresentation of minorities, I have asked at every meeting, and I've been to a lot of them, because it's an important subject for my office and this community. I ask each time, what is the overrepresentation of victims in our courthouses? And I have yet to have somebody who's given me a study on that in any meeting to say, here are the numbers. We have to look at both sides of that coin, because I can tell you we have overrepresentation of minorities as victims also. And we need to address the societal issues that cause those things. Mayor Hancock had a wonderful 4-part series he did with the Denver Post and the Gazette about a year and a half ago, where he went through what the causes for poverty, criminality, low education were. Quite frankly, it still comes back to protecting our families. It comes back to having strong family or family relationships or people helping to raise our kids. He pointed out that a single family is the number one indicator, single-parent family, for both criminality and poverty and lack of education. And when you have two parents, even if they're making minimum wage, you've doubled the income, you've greatly increased the chance of a good education, you've greatly increased the chance there will be no criminality, and you're taking people out of poverty. Those are the type issues of, now I'm not saying, there are a lot of wonderful single-parent families in this country, and that's where we need to learn how to build around them to give them the resources to raise those children in good, strong homes. That's a tougher issue to take on than some of the issues we're talking about right now. So I guess I've gone much further than what you wanted, but I think it's important to talk about what's going on over in the courts, talk about what our justice system reflects, which it is not reflecting an unjust system, it's reflecting societal issues that we all need to work together to confront. And it is not a simple answer.
When I heard your question, I thought you were talking about some of the court processes themselves, and let me address that. People have to understand the proper role of the criminal justice system. It's not to determine whether somebody has violated a policy of the Colorado Springs Police Department or the El Paso County Sheriff's Department. That's dealt with administratively. The role of the criminal justice system is to determine whether someone has violated the laws of the state of Colorado. And we have a constitutionally enshrined system that says before we can deprive anyone of their freedom or stamp a C on their forehead for criminal for the rest of their life, you have the right to have a jury of 12 people determine unanimously that the prosecution has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you, in fact, violated the law. And in a lot of the cases that we're talking about, where people are making split-second decisions, that that unfortunate outcome may or may not be reflected in the legal standard that is being applied in a criminal court. And I think some people see that as frustrating, but you have to, one of the things that's very, I deal with this all the time. Somebody said, oh, the jury found someone innocent. Juries don't determine whether someone's guilty or innocent. They determine whether someone's guilty or not guilty. And if they say not guilty, they're simply saying that we 12 people were not convinced unanimously beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed the crime that they were charged with. And so I think part of the frustration is somewhat of a fundamental misunderstanding of what's taking place in our courts.
Blacks are not angry. Blacks want to be treated fairly, just like everyone else want to be treated. We love you. I served in the military. I'm a pastor of a church, a member of the Southern Colorado Ministerial Union, serve on the executive branch of the NAACP. We're not angry. We love everyone. That individual that shot up 5 Dallas police officers is not a representation of the black community. You can drive down and ride down in the black community any day of the week, and no one is going to shoot you, no one is going to hurt you. We're not angry at all. We love you just like we love everyone else. I just don't want anyone to leave here today thinking that black folks are angry at someone. We want to be treated fairly. And we do not endorse what he did, what that individual did.
Thank you for your words. That wasn't my intent.
Thank you. Sheriff Elder, you spoke to this earlier, but I'm asking also Chief Carey and Chief Heber, do your officers feel supported by the community, and how does that support change after events like those recently in other communities and our own police-involved shooting here?
It's a great question. I'll speak about Colorado Springs Police Department. We feel blessed to have the support that we do have in this community. We've gone through some tough times, everything in the last 4 years, from fires to floods to some pretty bad situations in the last year. I can absolutely speak for my 700 cops and say we do very much feel supported, and we don't take that for granted. A day in, day out, we have to earn that, and I believe our officers feel very well supported. And as we move into body-worn cameras, we've done a lot of surveying and things like that with the public, and although that level of trust is high, in the 80s and 90% of people believe we're doing the right things when we're dealing with them, I do feel like our officers know that they're very well supported.
So, ma'am, there's no crying in baseball, and you're going to ask a question that's going to get me emotional. So to quote the famous words, I think of a movie, there's no crying in baseball. I was very proud, like Henry, to wear the uniform of a soldier. And, one of the great lessons learned we learned as a society after the Vietnam War was to appreciate the service of the American serviceman or woman across our country. I've felt that. I've been very proud of that. I am equally proud to wear this uniform. Throughout Colorado, as I have been in this uniform, I am so proud of the many people that have came up to our officers or me or Bill and said, thank you for your service. And I've heard that time and time again. I was walking into this building today, and there was a homeless man from New York City that had came by here to get some help, which he got. And he told me today, thank you for your service. I know you guys had a hard time. When my police officer was involved in an officer-involved shooting earlier this year, that night we had no fewer than 5 or 6 people drop off pizza and donuts, which is kind of, comedy guy who drops off donuts to a cop shop, right? And then today, just as I was leaving to come to this, a family brought in, and we appreciate this because I'm a cheesecake fan. They brought in and dropped off about 4 or 5 different cheesecakes. So I feel very supported. That's why I'm so proud to be a member of our profession. I'm so proud to be a member of our state, our county, and very proud to be in the city of Fountain. So thank you for your question.
Well, and I didn't want anybody to think that I was talking about that we never get support. We get a lot of support. The issue is that there is a vocal minority in our community that want to reach out and make comments like uniformed thugs wearing badges. There's a group of people that are disenchanted with government in general, that we work hard to counter that culture. We work hard with our partners, not only in law enforcement but in our community, to take away that argument. And that's why I said, that's why I echoed the chief's comments from Dallas. We don't need to divide our communities anymore. We need to find ways to bring our communities together. And we are blessed, like Chief Heber and Chief Carey said, we're blessed to get the support of a vast majority of our communities. And he's right. It's rare for me to go somewhere where I'm not thanked for what I do and for the job that we do in law enforcement. And we're proud of that. And we are very proud of this community.
I have a question up front. Have there been any discussions about police staffing, with that being said, about adding additional officers to 2-man a car opposed to a 1-man a car? And if so, how would that work with response times?
The chief and I actually had that conversation about 7:15 this morning. And yes, there has been discussions. It would slow response times. I don't think right now. I don't think it's anything that I'm going to do, but we're going to constantly monitor it.
It's something I considered last night as I saw the events unfolding in Dallas, Texas. In fact, I got a report that they immediately assigned 2-car units in some PDs at Texas and Dallas. I made the decision, along with the sheriff, not to do that. It would inhibit our calls for service response times, which aren't great right now anyway. And surprisingly enough, there's a lot of research and studies on whether or not a 2-officer car is safer than a 1-officer car. And the numbers don't clearly show that a 2-officer car is safer. I think officers that are together tend to take a couple more chances a little quicker and things like that. So at this point, we're going to keep an eye on things, and we're going to take care of each other, but we're going to do business as usual.
Just a very quick follow-up comment to that. We spoke last night, Sheriff Elder and Chief Carey and myself, and what is known first, there is no known threat in our community. There's no threads of threat. There's no intelligence. There's no information, so there's no threat. That being said, is it important for all our citizens and our police officers and deputies to be more aware? Absolutely. Do we want to remain vigilant to protect our community? Yes. Do we need all our citizens to help us do that? Absolutely. So, you know, the fear to this type of event, and I spoke to the mayor about it, is what you would call a copycat type of style event, or you have somebody in our community that's slightly on the fringe. This event happens, they get a lot of media press or coverage on it, and it pushes that person over the edge. Again, there's no known threat to our community, but we're all being vigilant, and we want the community to help us do that. So thank you.
Whenever, as a police chief, whenever I know that there's a big event coming up, and I don't care if it's a protest for or against marijuana, sit and lie, you name whatever the issue is. As a police chief, I always worry about not so much the event, but the counter demonstrators. I believe, like Chris Hebber said, there's evil in this world. And I believe there is a small number of people that are opportunists, and they're going to take advantage of a large gathering of people. We've done our homework in the last day or so, and there are no known threats or events going on in this community that I'm extremely nervous about. But we keep an eye on things, and as these events come together, and we know there's a lot of people in a certain area, we're going to pay attention and make sure that everybody's safe. But in my history as a police officer and a police chief, it's the counter demonstrators or the people that are coming in to cause some problems later on that we keep an eye out for.
Thank you. I'm Pastor Ephraim from New Vision Christian Center. We meet quite often with the police chief. And my comment, I wanted to make a comment concerning this gentleman here. I know he asked our NAACP man to answer the question. And it sort of gives me heart to know someone has some feeling about what's going on, but we don't have a solution. We feel like you feel. There's so much going on. We don't know what to do. We're searching for answers. And I'm like the pastor over there. We're not angry. We're just deeply concerned. And we're praying like you are and like the other people, that we can find a solution to help us not only here, but in other cities. And I just want you to know that I support the way you feel, because I feel that way sometimes myself.
Real quick, I guess this thing's on. Real quick, I want to thank all of you. I've had an opportunity, except for the chief from the Fountain, to be in the office and be supported by all of you that's standing there. And I think this is great leadership, that you guys are being preemptive regarding our community. I believe, kind of like the rest of you believe, I think all of you are doing a great job. We've all chatted about this. But I do know, those of us who've read a book or two, there's a little history that makes blacks a little bit concerned about police chiefs, chief of police, mayors. Even in our own state, several, not too long ago, the Klan was pretty active in Colorado, particularly in Canyon City, Colorado Springs, and Denver. In fact, Stapleton Airport is named after a Klansman, a very noted Klansman. So Klan activity here in our community is known. We know there's probably a Klan element still active in Colorado Springs. While we have a great community, we need to understand there are some haters out there. In general, our community is a great community. I feel just like Henry does. Henry had a great speech. I almost gave him applause. It's always great to have people who are interested in the betterment of our community. There's a lot of unknown things that are going on in our community. Much like Pastor Ephraim just alluded to, you just need to know your history and be concerned about what's going on and support the police. I know the chief's working on it. We meet periodically. The sheriff, we meet periodically. And you're trying to weed out any bad police officers, trying to weed out any bad sheriff's deputies, but you can't get them all. All I ask you to do is get the bad ones when you identify them. But thank you for the effort that you guys are putting forth right now.
Okay, that's going to close out our question and answer session. And one last thing before we do close, I would like to invite Pastor Brady Boyd of New Life Church to come down to close us out in prayer, and also with a moment of silence for those who have lost their lives, and then we will be dismissed.
Thank you, first of all, for all you do. We, as a church, we have leaned into you in the past for tragedies of our own, and I can say firsthand these men have proven themselves faithful and diligent, and I'm grateful to be a part of the city. So can we just, regardless of your faith day, can we just pray for healing and blessing and strength on the police officers and their families in Dallas, and those families affected by the tragedies in Baton Rouge and Minnesota. So let's just pray for healing. Father in heaven, we come to you because we are without answers of our own, and we lean in and trust your wisdom. And we ask today for the Holy Spirit, for healing, for health, for strength upon the families who have lost loved ones. Across our nation, we are wrecked by violence right now, and so we ask for your peace, the peace that passes all understanding, that peace that we believe only comes from you. And so today we ask for healing in our nation. We ask for strength over our police officers, those who are grieving. We ask, Lord, that you would cover and protect our police, our first responders here in our own city. And we ask, Lord, that you would put your hand of protection over the police and first responders around our nation. And we ask, Lord, that you would bring healing to any racial division or strife that is wrecking our country. Lord, I pray that you would bring us together and real relationships and real conversations. And we pray today for the healing of the divide that separates us. And we ask this in Christ's name. Amen.